Hello. In this video, we are gonna learn about constructors in Java. So to get a basic idea, every time you create an object in Java, something runs automatically. Even if you didn't write it yourself, that something is called a constructor. If you understand constructors, object-oriented programming starts to make sense. A constructor is like a special method used to initialize an object. It has the same name as the class name and it does not have a return type, not even void. Constructors are executed automatically when we use the new keyword. Please remember that. Now, you never call a constructor directly. Java calls it for you. Now, why do we even need a constructor? So, when an object is created, memory is allocated, but memory alone is not enough. Constructors help us put meaningful data into the memory immediately. This ensures that object starts its life in a valid and usable state. Now talking about the various types of constructors, first we have the default constructor. A default constructor is provided by the Java compiler only if we do not write any constructor ourselves. It initializes instance variables with default values like 0 for int, null for object, false for boolean values and so on and so forth. Now once we create any constructor manually, the compiler stops generating the default constructor. Okay, so default constructors are compiler generated, not developer written. Surely you can override that, but it is by default given by the compiler. Okay, now second is parameterized constructor. A parameterized constructor allows us to pass values at the time of object creation. Okay, this way the object is initialized immediately instead of setting values later. Now, it improves code readability and reduces bugs caused by uninitialized variables. Please remember this point. Now, each parameter in the parameterized constructor is matched with the values we pass inside new. We will see that in the coding part. Now, let's understand the concept of constructor overloading. It means having multiple constructors in the same class but with different parameters list. Okay, Java decides which constructor to call based on the number and type of arguments. This allows flexibility, that is, objects can be created in different ways depending on the situation. Now, to remember this, you can think of it like same class name, same constructor name, but different parameters. Okay. Now, coming to the concept of copy constructor, Java does not provide a built-in copy constructor like C++. Okay. But we can create our own constructor that takes an object of the same class. This constructor copies values from one object into a new object. Now, both objects contain the same data, but they occupy different memory locations in the RAM. Okay? Now, to summarize it all, constructors are the foundation of object creation in Java. Once you master constructors, understanding advanced OOP concepts become much easier. Now, let's get to the coding part and implement it. I have created a class, public class constructor types. Okay. Now, I will give instance variables as integer id and another string name. Okay. Now, first we create the default constructor, public class name with function symbol, then id we will set it to 0 and name we can use default user. Okay, looks good. Now I will just print here default constructor called. Okay, so we can see during implementation. Okay, now I will also create a main method, public static void main. Okay, now let's do this. Let's create an object of obj1 equal to new constructor. types. Looks good. Now we will also here create a display function, say void display. Here we'll just print system.println id, it will be id and then name plus name. Okay, now let's call this obj1.display. Okay, let's see. Default constructor called id 0, name default user, as we had specified previously. Wow, it worked. Now let's create a parameterized constructor. So public constructor types, then we'll pass values here, integer id and string name. Then we will map these parameters to our instance variables. This dot id is equal to id, this to this. Now this dot name to our name instance variable. Okay, now just for reference I will print here parameterized constructor called. Okay, now let's do that even. obj2 will pass here, say 3 id 3 name spandan. obj2 dot display, see parameterized constructor called id 3 name spandan. Okay, I hope you understand this. Then we move to constructor overloading. Okay, I will create another constructor. Oops, public constructor types. Okay, I will pass here only the id, I won't pass the name, just to give you an illustration. Now we will map this parameter id to our instance variable id, and for name I will give a name myself here, say name not provided. Okay, we are giving this ourselves, and for reference we will call here system.out.println constructor overloading. Okay, now let's create obj3 and don't pass name here. obj3 dot display, let's give a new id, say 5. Constructor overloading id 5, name is name not provided, as we had specified previously. Okay, now coming to the last concept, that is copy constructor. I will do this by creating another constructor, that is public constructor types, and in this parameter I will accept an object of constructor types itself, obj. Okay, now this dot id will be equal to the id of this object, obj object. Now this dot name will be equal to the name of the name in obj dot name. Okay, obj dot name. system.out.println copy constructor called. Looks good. Now let's create another object, obj4. Now here we will pass obj2. Okay, as you can see, inside this obj4 we are passing another object of this type itself, obj2. Let's do it. obj4.display, let's run. See, copy constructor called id3 name spandan. This id3 name spandan was in obj2. Okay, so this id is stored in obj4.id also. Now this name is also stored in obj4.name. So obj2 and obj4 are two objects having the same data, but they have different memory locations. Okay, they are two different objects. Understood? I hope you understood the concept of constructors. If you find it helpful, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.